What was your rhyme in a toxic family moment? I moved in with my and noticed she called her family for things I would never call my own for, because she actually likes them and doesn't see communicating with them as an obligation, but rather because she wanted them to be part of her everyday life. This is something I noticed with my husband too. He talks to his family almost daily and has a good familiar relationship with his parents. I talk to my family maybe twice a year, and it fills me with dread. Doing family stuff with him is hard, and it makes me uncomfortable to be around a normal family. Like I just don't know how to act lol. I grew up in an incredibly unstable and violent family. I got out and haven't looked back. I'm 100% no contact now. My wife's family have group text chats. They FaceTime every week. They are in constant contact and clearly love each other. I don't even know how many nieces and nephews I have. It's been many years, but it still occasionally throws me for a loop. I had my graduation from engineering the same day as my mother's birthday. I, of course, had nothing to do with the date choosing. My mother said I ruined her birthday, so she scheduled her birthday party to be on my actual birthday. Her birthday is March, mine is August. That's dedication to being a bitch. Hope life has been better otherwise. My birthday, I got you a pack of socks, but I realized I can get them cheaper from somewhere else, so I'm going to return them. My brother 2 weeks later, I think I'd like archery. Will you get me the $600 bow? Parents, oh hell yes. I never got the socks. I feel you man, had similar crap as a kid. My dad paid for my sister's dorm room supplies and her car payments, all the while refusing to pay for them. When my ex-sister-in-law broke into my house and started painting my living room while I was at work, apparently she didn't like the color and that would just ruin her Christmas. Wait, what? My dad screamed at me for 20 minutes when I was 11, called me a bitch, and told me to get the hell out of his house when I casually mentioned we seem to argue more than other families. My heart hurts for everyone who shared their trauma. I'm giving you all a big hug right now. Things can get better, and I'm hoping it does for all of you. When you can, address your trauma, reach out and talk to someone. My dad regrets not having talked to someone about what he went through as a kid because of how much it hurt his own family. The problem with taking the stance of simply refusing to be my blank is you create a whole new set of bad behaviors because you are trying to overcompensate. Freedom is acknowledging that in some ways you may be like blank, but that doesn't make you them. Oh my gosh, are you doing alright? Actually, probably a lot better than I should be. Therapy, moving out, and a coming to Jesus moment for my dad has helped our relationship immensely, as well as him coming to terms with his own childhood trauma and learning how to cope with anger in a healthier way. It was a rough set of years, but I also know my story is best case scenario, so I try not to bring it up too often, since I know I'm in the minority and don't want others who are still dealing with their trauma to feel less than. My mom said I love you at the end of a phone conversation when I was 22, and I realized it was the first time she ever said that. My dad said he was sorry for something he did for the first time in 27 years a couple months ago. I still tear up a bit when I reread his text. Hey, people change. I'd rather have someone apologize than ignore it ever happened. Years ago I was in the hospital after getting stabbed in the abdomen. Went under and the EMS had to bring me back. Woke up in the hospital full of stitches, but still alive. I had a really great group of friends that came throughout the weeks of my being there, to the point that I got my own room. Because it was disturbing fellow patients I shared a room with and the staff were super nice about it. Only family member to visit was my younger sister, my mom, dad, other 4 siblings. None of them came, and my mom only phoned and communicated to me through the nurses, never speaking directly to me until I was back at home. And this was during a time where we actually had a decent, comparative to other times in life, relationship. Whenever my mom would always tell me that I love my friends more than my family every time I get home from hanging out with my friends. Note that I seldom do leave the house to hang out with them, once every other week tops, because I'm mostly introverted. It's even worse if I go out for 2 consecutive days or more SMH. It's suffocating and stupid, really. can relate. Even if this hangout is something important like a 3-hour group study, they would use that against me for the rest of the week like I care about my friends more than I care for them. Well, maybe I do now, because they don't seem to care at all for me. Also note that I only get to meet up with my friends once in a blue moon in person, before the pandemic, say around every 8 months. Strictly when we have an important agenda. I've lost touch with many childhood friends who moved to other countries because of this toxic relationship, and I can't even manage to make new ones along the way. For reference, I'm a boomer, so I've seen a ton of changes here in the dear old US of A. When I was in grade school, we were on vacation in Arkansas, driving by a building I must assume was a diner/burger joint of some kind. BC it was visible from the road. Even more conspicuous was the enormous sign reading "colored" served in the rear with a big arrow. I was learning to read and practicing read the sign aloud. My father, who was driving, nodded his head and said, "Exactly as it should be." Even though I was only 6, that was my wake-up call. I'm not American, so I think I didn't get the context. Is colored referring to black people? Why would the diner be so blatantly racist? I have questions. Not op but American here. Back in what we refer to as the baby boomer generation, people born during approximate 1946 to 1964. During those decades there was a lot of segregation due to Jim Crow laws, basically including legal racism/discrimination. Black people were given their own schools, water fountains, bathrooms, seating, and all of this was badly made or broken or junk. Also during that time black people were referred to commonly as colored people or Negroes in polite terms. They were called much worse things behind closed doors, but sometimes publicly as well, unfortunately. When my mom yelled at me for being depressed, she was saying how rude and inconvenient it is for everyone around me that I was depressed. She was screaming so hard that her face was all red. She screamed at me frequently. She would always wait until I was in the car with her because I would be unable to leave. I stopped talking to her after that, and she played the victim. She apparently was suffering because she was abandoned by her daughter. No one in my family wanted to hear my side of things. No one reached out to check in on me. I was made out to be the bad selfish daughter. Now, I don't have a relationship with anyone in my family. I cut both my parents off after I realized they both will not change or get help or see they ever did anything wrong. It's been tough to deal with the emotions of it all, especially the emotions I felt when I was younger and in their care. I've been working on it with therapy for a few years now, but it's been a necessary decision for me to cut those ties so I can focus on myself and my growth and healing the parts of me that have been broken from my past. Same thing happened with me. They'd guilt trip me about wanting to move out someday and never see them again. Absolutely made me the black sheep ever since I was little. It sucks, but you have to stay strong and break the cycle. When I moved out my dad said we were cutting ties. I didn't understand what he meant at the time, but I think he meant he never wanted to talk to me again. I think he was trying to manipulate me into staying. My wife helped me come to the realization. Out of myself and my 2 brothers, I was the only one to have never been arrested, yet I was the only my parents did not buy a car for. I had to be moved out of the house, 2 freaking states away, and teach myself how to drive illegally to get my driver's license, but my brothers were sure taken care of and driving to school on their own. I had my wife, girlfriend at the time, over to my parents for Christmas dinner. My mom offers me a glass of champagne about 2 months before my 21st birthday. No big deal, right? My stepdad proceeds to throw a temper tantrum about how I'm underage and not in his house and all this crap. Well, a couple months later found out he bought my little brother, his biological child, a bottle of high-end bourbon for his 18th birthday. When I was in the service they had a whole bunch of deep sea fishing trips and pro sports games they would go to without even so much as asking if I could come. They didn't come to my boot camp graduation that I offered to pay for, didn't see me off. When I was deployed wasn't there. When I came back, great times. Much more crap I can't think of right now. Geez, I'm so sorry, that's terrible. When I was in the high school band, I was first chair flute player. As soon as I could drive myself there, they stopped coming to my concerts. It hurt. I feel you. I just try not to dwell on it too much, but it does hurt. Side note, I was also in high school band. Played the trombone. When my mom and dad finally separated, because they finally admitted that all that fighting wasn't normal, I talked to them in my young teens about how I hate how they fight so much, and my mom said all married couples fight like that, and that it was normal. Now I'm 18, and they separated this year, and they realized it is not normal or healthy to have discussions that involve screaming, tears, clenched fists and everything short of physically harming each other nearly every day. Neither of them are abusive, they are both good parents, but they were just in a bad relationship and thought that staying together would make me and my sisters happier, when in reality I wish they would have separated years ago. They brought out the worst in each other, and my mom came out as lesbian, so part of the reason she was angry all the time was from repressing her sexuality. Fighting is sometimes normalized, because it's true that every couple disagrees. Hearing that, people can start to think their situation is normal. It's never healthy to have a disagreement where either person is hyper-aroused or hyper-aroused. Usually the hyper-arousal fights are worse than checking out. If someone is in a hyper-emotional state, they are not in a state to solve problems. They are usually in a state to make them worse. Both people in this state gets nasty. This should never happen, but realistically it will. My wife and I are pretty good about solving problems and taking time to cool off before getting into an emotional topic. It surprises some of our friends in unhealthy relationships to learn we have emotional fights once every few months now. That's down from every few weeks after some communication coaching for us both and some personal therapy, especially for her coming from a dysfunctional family. Anyway, if anyone reading this is having daily or weekly fights where emotions are high and no longer under control, realize that's not healthy. You may be able to benefit from couples therapy. Don't buy into the idea that fighting is normal. That's a very hard way to live your only life. I was 9, and I was really nice to poor guy selling shirts out of the back of his truck. My dad pulled me away and told me directly, it's great to be nice to people, Chris, but be mean too. You want people to be a little scared of you. Even at 9 I was like, bruh, that's not great, and it really was an interaction that shaped our relationship. I went on to teach, have a vibrant friend group. Every year a dozen of us meet up for New Year's, and we're in the 10th year this year, and generally I love people. It's in my work and in every fiber of my life. He died alone of an overdose about 10 years ago. The funeral would have been basically empty if not for all the friends who came to console me. I feel this. My father died 15 years ago at the age of 55 in a nursing home by himself from lung cancer. Luckily we ran away from him when I was 6, so my toxic family became a good family. If anyone asks about my BO father, I smile and tell them it's fine, he's dead now. That shuts them up. Karma is a bitch. As I've gotten older I've gotten less angry at him and more just sympathetic, I guess. He was a decent enough dude before the addiction. He definitely had some mental health issues, but probably could have been a really good father / partner / etc had he gotten it together. He never did, but I stopped being mad at him for that years ago. Some people never pull it together, and it's the people around them who carry that weight usually. When I was 4 years old my mom told me that my parents divorced because dad was a drug / alcohol addict. She neglected to mention her own problems, but suffice to say I've been stuck in the middle of their drama for 31 years now as an only child. I remember my dad not showing up to my school's Thanksgiving and eating alone. I remember sitting in the car watching my parents scream at each other. This happened again in high school when they put me in a mental hospital and the therapist tried to do family therapy. Lol. Now they fight over my child. How can they fight over your child? It's not this. Some people are fricked with a capital narcissist, like my grandmother. I got this text. Facts about COVID-19 Swiss policy research. Op. Words cannot express how disappointed I'm in your recent behavior. I have lost all respect for you and my BF. Not to be there for your mother for loss of her brother, or at least call her on your birthday and the departure of your little brother to the army. Your self-centered, selfish behavior is despicable. I've said it once, And I'll say it again, you are a follower, a sheep. You should learn the facts about COVID-19 and quit listening to the media like the rest of the sheep in the world. You always been a taker when there's something in it for you'll be there for the handout. Please do not reach out to me for anything in the future. I'm so done with you, disappointed. I have lost all respect for you. Someday you should try to apologize to your mom. She's always been there for you, even when sucker punched her in the face. Maybe she'll be there for you again someday. Right now her heart is just sad due to your drama. Oh, one other thing I do want to say, you should quit your job before you drag your mother down with your demise. Your mother had worked hard to achieve the position she has in the company. She took a lot of crap for hiring your dumbass and you don't even care. She asked me to hire you for a lot control. I knew better. I knew you'd frick up again. Have a great life. It was in response to me wearing a face mask to my uncle's funeral at a freaking bar with 200 people during the peak of COVID in Arizona. Wow. Just wow. I'm sorry you have to deal with these assholes. I married into a toxic family. My husband realized it when his sister attacked me verbally out of the blue to him for an hour and then blamed him for making her husband hate the entire family. Everyone else in the family who was within earshot all claimed to have not noticed or heard anything. It was loud and long. They knew. He was pretty shell-shocked by the whole thing. It was ignored and never resolved or discussed. It's a very large family. I have been the black sheep ever since, even though I wasn't even in the fight. I would actually take responsibility for anything if I knew what made her so mad at the time. I apologized to her and she has never even admitted anything happened. She was having a really tough time in her marriage and is now divorced. We didn't live in town, so each visit was a nice pleasant, and we all got along fine prior to this. This reminds me of something similar that happened to me. One night my BF's brother tried to choke him because he has anger issues. I called his sick parents because I didn't want to call the police and didn't know what to do in order to calm him down. The next morning his sister came by and insulted me and my BF for an hour straight for calling their parents, and the entire issue was never acknowledged again. I never received an apology. 11 years old when my mom and I came home to my aunt stealing our stereo equipment. When my mom confronted her, she pulled a knife. At the same moment my uncle happened to be driving by, slammed on the brakes, reversed and then came into the yard on the lawn and hit the corner of the house a little bit, jumped out of the van, and pulled a gun on my aunt. As my mom unpacked everything to me later, she explained that my aunt was stealing to get money for her drug habit. Much later I found out that my uncle was high as a kite and shouldn't have been driving at all. I look back on that day as the day I decided not to do drugs. To be fair, my nuclear family was generally your standard loving functional family. It was just my mom's half siblings that were toxic, always taking money and never around unless they had to. After my mom died, my aunt called me looking for money and I pretty much hung up and never talked to any of them again. Sounds a lot like some of my cousins constantly hounding my grandmother. When she passed they tried it with my aunt and she hung up too.